All right, so this is presentation three for South Asia. In this one, we'll look at some of the different countries in the region and what they're dealing with. I'll have to move some of these photos so you can see. All right, so first off, Nepal and Bhutan. So these countries, what would be called mountain kingdoms. So it's very mountainous there. You got the Himalayas in the region, and so they're going to be geographically isolated. They're landlocked, so they don't have access to the ocean. And then, of course, because of the mountains, you can't really farm that much and stuff like that. So, and it's hard just to control and to move around and things like that. So tourism is increasing in the region. You are seeing more tourists in the area, and a lot of hikers and mountain climbers. More adventurous style travel for the most part there. But generally, it's just sparsely populated. You got Buddhism is really big there, so you got a lot of Buddhist monasteries and things like that up high in the mountains. And then Sri Lanka and the Maldives. These are your two islands, or island and then island groups. So Sri Lanka had a civil war there for a long time. Started in the 1980s and lasted until May 16th of 2009 between the Sinhalese and the Tamils. And since the wars ended, it's been pretty peaceful in the region. Main concern right now is deforestation on the island. The Maldives is an archipelago of 1,200 islands. Used to be an Islamic state. Now it's a really popular honeymoon destination. So a lot of resorts and tourism there. And then looking at some myths and realities in India. So this mainly we're just looking at. So one is that we do have a high amount of poverty in India. So about 36% of Indians are below poverty, and of the rest, 70% are near poverty, so right near the line. So there's still a lot of poor people in India currently. But it is getting better. And a stereotype sometimes is a lot of Indians are really poor and sleep on the streets. Now this would be like an example of an untouchable. But you do have slums there, but obviously a lot of people though live in apartments and nice homes and things of that sort. So you do have hundreds of millions of people that live in the middle and upper class, and the middle class is expanding, which is good. And then population, you got over 1 billion people in India. They're growing faster than China because they didn't have a one-child policy in India, and there's no purpose for a one-child policy in India because there's too many young people, so you would still have high growth. That really wouldn't change anything for the most part. And then you look at women leaders; they've actually had several female leaders and females in the government, even though females in society generally are not treated well whatsoever. So that's kind of interesting how that works. And then you do have things that unite them together. So about 82% of the population is Hindu. And you have a strong federal democracy, so a strong government that does unite them. But you have a lot of things that separate them. 12% of the population is Muslim, 2% are Christians, 2% are Sikhs, 4% are Jainists, 1% are Buddhists. So you got these religious differences, and then you got 17 official languages that the government actually recognizes. 500 political parties compared to the two main political parties we have in our country. So it's going to be hard for the government to work together and stuff like that. And then, of course, you still have the caste system. Even though it's outlawed, still about 16% of the population upholds it and still uses it. More so going to be in rural areas. And then going back to language again, you have over 1,000 languages spoken in India. 20 of these languages have over 1 million speakers each. And then you have different dialects. So even if they're speaking the same language, you're not going to necessarily be able to understand each other. And I gave you the example when we talked about Europe. I gave you the example of like Italy, for example. If you have someone from Rome, someone from Venice, and someone from Sicily, which is all in Italy, they're all speaking Italian, but the dialects are so different because Italy was not a unified country for a long time, and so therefore they can't even really understand each other. Same thing happens in India as well. And then, of course, as I mentioned, religions. The Sikhs, which is a combination of Muslim and Hindu beliefs, so meaning that Muslims and Hindus aren't really going to accept the Sikhs whatsoever. The Jainists are very strict. They're the ones that have like a mask over their face to protect them from breathing in an insect. And then Christians are mainly along the West Coast because that is where Europeans arrived from or landed on. They landed on the West Coast coming from Europe, and so that's where Christianity came in. And then Islam came in through invaders. You had the Mughal Empire, and they also built some stuff like the Taj Mahal. This was built by Shah Jahan for his wife Mumtaz that died. He built that in her honor or in her memory. And then religion, again, Hinduism, you need to know the basics. So the fact that they're polytheistic, meaning they believe in many gods. The third largest religion on earth, so it's Christianity, Islam, and then Hinduism. One in every 7 people on earth is actually a Hindu living in India, which can be hard to believe. And then, of course, like we said, they're polytheistic. I mentioned already about the Ganges River and how they believe it's holy, and that's why they bathe and drink it. And of course, they believe it has healing powers. But because of the pollution and human waste and things that are in it, industrial waste, it actually gives them typhoid, hepatitis, and cholera. So it makes them very, very sick and can kill them. Cleaning up the Ganges, I mentioned how they don't really try to clean it because they believe Mata Ganga or Mother Ganges will fix it and will make it clean before it enters their body, or she will clean it in general. So there's no need to pay millions of dollars to try to clean it up. And then territorial disputes. Kashmir is this territory up here in the north. India and Pakistan have fought over this territory mainly for access to clean water for the most part. They actually almost fought, or they did fight two wars, 1965 and 71. Almost came to nuclear war in the end of the 90s. I mean, this got pretty heated for the most part. And like I said, mainly over drinking water, and it's also a strategic location, militarily speaking. It's a good place to control. And then, like I said, 98, 99, they started testing nuclear weapons and almost went to nuclear war. But thankfully, with help from China and the United States and other countries, were able to help talk them down and to not go that far. And so instead of focusing on fighting each other right now, they're focused more so on investing in education and the infrastructure of their countries and getting rid of poverty, which is good. Now, religion comparison. Now, this is stuff we've already talked about already before, but you do need to make sure you know the basics of these religions. So there's the basics of Hinduism. So make sure you know in general this stuff here. Also, your basic beliefs. Definitely need to understand reincarnation, karma, dharma, and then the caste system. You don't need to know all the names of the different castes, but just the whole idea of, you're born into a certain caste based on your past life, your past karma, basically, and then based on this life, will decide what you are in the next life. If you can go from a merchant to a ruling class, or if you're going to go from ruling class all the way down to unskilled laborer in the next life. And then Buddhism, also know this as well. It started in India, but now it's more popular towards China. And then here are your basic beliefs. Again, they're trying to reach enlightenment, which they call nirvana. They don't believe in reincarnation, though, but they do believe in Four Noble Truths. Basically, the idea is that everything in life is suffering and sorrow, and we have that because our desire to want more. And so the way to fix this is to follow the Eightfold Path. And basically, in a nutshell, is be a good person, love others, and be content with what you have. And by doing that, you will find happiness in life, is the general idea.